Hello again. I recently posted something that, of course, from a subjective standpoint, I thought really captured well what it is I was trying to say. But like with a lot of communication, things were misinterpreted and required a lot of clarification. So I thought I would take the video in order to address this. The statement that I shared was that if easily upset by others, you've been shown where you need to heal. When they can no longer upset you, you know that you have healed. Some of the pushback that I received on this was coming from people that have a strong trauma history in some cases. So, understandably, things are going to be seen through that lens, which is a very unique and extreme experience. So, what I was not suggesting is the idea that you get to a point where the abuse no longer upsets you. That's kind of how it was taken, and that's understandable considering. But let me just kind of give you more of a 30,000-foot view of this principle as opposed to looking at specific examples of where it might be an exception, because there are always those, right? They say the exception proves the rule. So I'm talking about in the vast majority of our typical interactions with people, some folks will project on us. They have issues that they're not ready to confront, so they look for other people to blame it on. No, you're the one who's being impatient. No, you're the one who doesn't like having their ideas questioned. And they'll keep accusing you of the things that they themselves cannot take ownership of yet. So in that case, what they're doing isn't personal, meaning it's not about you. I'm not saying that it doesn't affect you. We are affected by the emotional energy around us. When people act angrily, it's not just words and it's not just thoughts. It's also physical, visceral energy. And I think our energy goes out from our bodies like 3 to 6 feet. By all means, research that because my memory of numbers isn't always the best. But we can feel when other people's energies are approaching us. And if those energies harsh our vibe, we are going to feel naturally resistant to it. Like when we're feeling happy and somebody is feeling crabby or anxious and they come and want to vomit that all over us, we can set boundaries for ourselves. Now, these are all learned, and I'm not saying any of it's easy. This is difficult work. You have boundaries where you say, I decided to have a happy day, to focus on the positive, and realize that all the negative stuff are temporary. Now, again, I'm not talking about abuse. That is a situation where somebody isolates you. It is not easy to just be empowered and say, I'm not taking this any longer. You can no longer do what you've been doing. That could be a death sentence, literally, for people in that situation. So I'm not pretending for 1 second that you can simply say, well, this doesn't work for me any longer, and I'd like to renegotiate our relationship and have more healthier boundaries. In situations like abuse, the healthier boundary very well could be when you get to the point where you realize, I stay and die or I risk getting out of here, and you reach out to community service agencies, a friend or a relative who can protect you without telling the abuser where you are. I mean, it's very, very complex to get out of a situation like that and learn that you deserve boundaries, how to set them, and so on. But once you are able to get enough distance, and I'm not saying this is a transaction like, honey, I'm leaving. I don't like the way you treat me. I'm out of here. Everything's hunky-dory. This could be a multi-year and in some cases a lifelong process to maintain boundaries with an abuser. But again, just to qualify that what I'm talking about is not that unique situation of abuse. I'm talking about coworkers, friends, neighbors, people where if you cut them off, it would not cost you terribly. Okay, and the vast majority of people in your life hopefully are like that, where they're useful to you, they're helpful, they had a role in your life once, but things have changed. And now you need to say, my needs have evolved, my needs are different, and we're not on the same page because my needs are not being met in this relationship. And there are people, unfortunately, you can care deeply about them. They can be your closest relatives, your closest friends, but they are simply not at a place within themselves to meet your needs. So what do? Do you continue to beat the dead horse and continue to allow yourself to be hurt every time they do something that they've done for eternity? At what point do you give yourself the permission to say, this is the story in this person's head, how they believe the world works. They believe things about themselves are unchangeable. This is just who I am. And you have to accept this. No growth for me, thank you. I'm stuck in my ways primarily because of my inflexible ideas and beliefs, not because I'm incapable of growth. That's something that's really critical to understand. But trying to convince the other person that they need to grow to help you, that they need to grow to meet your needs, in many cases, you're talking to a brick wall. Because a person who is invested in protecting themselves from their own pain is also going to have a hard time seeing yours. They've shut themselves off to hurt. They pretend everything's fine. They pretend they're happy all the time, when in many cases, they're miserable inside. In fact, just a little caveat here. You hear stories about people that seem to have it all together. They lit up a room. They were the happiest person. Then they go and kill themselves. What happened? Well, what happened is this was a person who learned that their persona of happiness is what got love. But what they didn't learn is how to be completely authentic, to show all of themselves and have all of that be loved. So they kind of exchange their own needs for people pleasing. There's a lot of moving parts here, and I know that this statement was kind of an oversimplification, which is part of the point, is you want it to create conversation. You want people to start thinking about what they believe to be true, especially in terms of their options for saying no in a relationship. Yes, certain scenarios are much harder to say no and step away from, but generally speaking, there is nothing that socially obligates you to continue to be beaten by someone else who's not dealing with their own hurt, but is instead acting as though the decisions they made about why they're hurting, why they ought to be hurting, why they deserve to be hurting, why they deserve to blame other people, as long as that's their story and you are willing to be in the presence of that, it's important for you to be able to say, that's your story. I'm witnessing your story. I'm listening to you talk about your pain. I'm even listening to you use words like you, your fault, your problem. But it doesn't mean I have to agree with that. Because when you can let somebody else keep their story like you were watching TV or a movie, and you don't believe that this is because I'm not good enough. This is because I said or did something wrong. That's the kind of stuff that allows you to personalize what's being said. But when all of your evidence and your life experience tells you the person they're accusing me of being is not the person I'm showing up as, so this must be something else that they are projecting on me. Now, I could talk for hours on this because boundaries are not a simple cut and paste process. They're actively negotiated. And if you're the only one that's in it, in the conversation about improving things, then it's not a negotiation. It's a monologue. It's a lecture. A negotiation is when two people talk, listen, share their feelings and their needs, and you find a place where you both feel like you are getting something from the relationship. But if it's you talking to a wall and you're the only one who sees the issues, if you want to maintain that relationship, you've got a decision to make. Are you going to stay in it? Is there enough there for you that you're going to stay in it to get that, but the needs you've been trying to get met from that person, you now need to meet in other relationships, existing ones or new ones? Or you got to talk about or think about, do I leave this? Is it costing me so much to be here in this relationship that it's not worth being here anymore? Hard decisions. There's nothing easy about this. I can give it lip service all day long. And I wouldn't even dare to suggest this to you if I have not had to end some very toxic relationships. I've never been in a physically abusive relationship. I can't speak to that from any lived experience. But I can speak to being in very emotionally abusive relationships and setting boundaries there. It's a process. It's risky. It can be scary. There can be a lot of tears, a lot of anger, a lot of sadness. But when you're navigating the rapid waters that can get you into the smoother stream, you got to buckle up and do the work and go through the ride so that you can make it through to the place where things calm down, not only in your life around you, but also inside you, when your mind is calmer, when your emotions are calmer, when your breathing is calmer. So there's so much that goes into setting boundaries. It's not just a mental task. It's bringing your entire being to bear. So I will leave it with that. I know I've been a little all over the place, but when you got a scatterbrain, it kind of comes with the territory. I hope this clarifies the statement some. I don't imagine it's going to answer all questions, but hopefully it will help the conversation along with us. So please leave a comment or a question and share it with somebody you think could benefit or contribute to this conversation. And until we talk next, thanks for being you.